I'm Mike, and I'm working on an app called Stowaway, which helps you budget, save, and get good deals on travel. It's still as Alec knows, it's still in the very early phases. But my plan is, and I don't know if I shared this with you, but I probably have. My plan is to have it done and out, just get something out there and in the App Store in the next 2.5 months, a little bit less than 2.5 months. And if I can't do that, then I need to take a break, and I need to, because I'm realizing that I need to, and from what the people who are really, really honest about their feedback have said is you need to have a cutoff date eventually. And for my mental well-being, like eventually I need to make more than I'm spending. And I need to, there's a lot of other things I want to do. So I think I still believe in it. I still believe in the mission. I believe in the business. I think it's a good one. I just need to get stuff out there. So that's kind of my brief overview intro.
Cool. I'm Alec. I'm working on mainly handmade business, doing laser cut wood art, and I do bookmarks and jewelry and a few other things, and kind of constantly evolving product line. I started on Etsy, have my own website where I sell online, have been doing craft fairs to whatever extent I can during the pandemic, and starting to get into wholesaling in stores. So that's kind of a side business that I've been growing for about 2 years now. It's still not a huge business, but I've been kind of really focusing on growth and try to grow it in 2021. And then kind of on the side and on the back burner right now is a potential software business with a tool to try to help other makers and customers connect online. Since I think there's kind of a gap, there's Etsy that really supports. It's a great place for like makers to get started, but they do take kind of a large percentage of fees, and there's a lot of issues with the way their kind of relationship with sellers and things that they don't really create a firm relationship between customers and the makers themselves. Their relationship is really Etsy directly with the customer, and so it kind of cuts the maker out. So I'd like to create some kind of service to really help people connect directly with makers. Have not been working on that one kind of the last couple of months. So like I said, I sort of put it on the back burner. This summer, we're recording this in April, and I'm getting into craft fair season. So I'm going to be pretty busy with that. And so I don't know how much I'm going to work on it over the next few months. And I also really want to focus on growing my handmade business. So it may kind of get tabled until, next fall or winter. Or I may just work a little bit on it here and there. But I also work full time. So this is kind of both of these are sort of side gigs that I'm slowly trying to build up. So that's my long intro.
I like that. That you're really good at describing the problem. That's something I struggle with. We talked about this last week. Like when you were talking about your potential software business, and you're like, well, the problem is that the relationship is between Etsy and the customer, and then you made it really, really simple to understand. I need to get better at that, because framing the problem as people want to travel, but travel is expensive. Like, here's how we make it cheaper. I feel like that's sort of the problem, but the problem is also what is, the way that people save for travel is pretty complex today. And that's part of the problem, but then it's also feeling confident booking, I think, is another small part of the problem, smaller. And so I need to get as good as you are at describing my problem.
And I think as you continue to talk to customers and get, figure out the way they describe the problem, that'll help you describe it. Even the way, like, my framing of the problem I'm trying to solve has sort of, like, that didn't come from customer interviews. That really came from just like being involved in the community and reading, watching videos of people who sell on Etsy and their recommendations about creating a business and the need to create a business outside of that, bigger than Etsy, because Etsy won't sustain or can sustain a business, but you're sort of an Etsy business, you're not a business. So I sort of came to that like description of the problem from just sort of being involved in the community. And so I think you'll probably get it more from customer interviews, or to whatever extent you can sort of be involved in the community, beyond just knowing people who travel and save for travel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. It's, yeah, it's something that it's one of like my main goal, I think. So I was thinking about goals for this upcoming week. And I've been doing this thing where I've been trying to shoot low and exceed expectations, which aligns with my life philosophy of low expectations are the spice of life. Um, and so what I really want to do is like all the amazing feedback you gave on my pitch deck. I want to incorporate all that in the deck, and I want that to be my main goal. I also want to hook up parts of the application, but like I really want to get that pitch deck to a place where like I really know every number, every statistic, every story. I think that's the important part, the stories. Like I like in the back of my head, I want to have like a 10 pages of notes for every single slide that I just know like off the top of my head. It's one of the things where like when I was doing market research and a report was difficult to write, or a section of a report was difficult to write, that was always assigned to me that I just hadn't done enough research. And so I learned to just stop and go out and do more research, interview more people, and then come back to it. And when it flows easily, that's when you know that like, okay, you've hit the right point. And the problem part isn't flowing easily. And some parts of it, I know general figures and I know general portions of it, but it's not streaming out as if, as I feel when I have been in other scenarios where I just knew everything perfectly. So that's one of the things that, yeah, I don't know. That's one of the things I was thinking about for my goals for the next couple of weeks. That's my main goal. And then I've got like 4 or 5 other ones, but.
And so the goal is what? Continue to talk to people, or to form sort of
to get a version 2 of my pitch deck that I feel confident, basically that I would feel confident delivering if it wasn't in front of me.
Okay.
I don't know if like 2 weeks, it's kind of without actually having like giving these presentations is difficult. Like, yeah, I feel like if I built it and then gave it delivered it 5 times, I'd probably get to that point. So maybe I need to bake that into my process. Maybe I need to wrangle my roommates and pitch them on my business or something.
Of course, you could just keep recording it and post it on YouTube or something.
That's actually a really good point. Just like over and over and over, bash my head into a wall. Just I think one of my best skills is being able to bash my head into walls until they break. It's like most people are like intelligent people build like, I don't know, find really smart tools and spend a lot of time whittling out holes to get through the wall, or like really strong people just kick the wall down. I just have to bash my head into it over and over, and eventually it falls.
Perseverance, right? That's a good trait.
Yeah.
Sometimes brute force is kind of the only way to do it, because, well, maybe you just don't know the right way to do it yet, or there isn't a clear right way, and you just got to figure it out.
Yeah. And one of my biggest learnings that this past week was, so I haven't ever like in like a real business scenario built software. I've only ever built it like for myself, for my business. And some of it's been really easy software that like the user interview exchange runs on. But like when you get into complex like models and things like that, I made some mistakes where I still make them, where like I need to learn. I learned this week that just build it, like actually running through and building the front end helped me solidify all the models that I need for the app. And then I went back into the back end, and it just like cut the amount of back end time, development time, in like half. I spent like 3 hours last night just absolutely just running through it because I had all the models on the front end.
What do you mean when you say models? Data model?
Sorry?
Go ahead.
Data models.
Okay.
Yeah. So like what is So in the application and in the users database, what is a trip? What is that comprised of?
Okay. What are the data fields a part of that, or properties?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. And how are they accessed? And once I have that, like, okay, great. I know exactly how I can find all these on the back end and then input that, so I'm learning a lot, constantly learning. I wish there was, I wish I had already learned all this stuff, but it's all good.
It's only one way to learn it is to do it,
Yeah.
right?
That was a highlight, I would say. That was a highlight from last week. And that was honestly a highlight from like yesterday to today, because I had a usability test this morning. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be sweet if I just like actually showed them the app and it was just working? And so last night I was like, I'm just gonna like totally like just code at light speed for like 4 or 5 hours, which I did. And then like I built the back end, I got the front end working, and then I went to go connect them at midnight, and like it didn't work. And like and I know the issue, and it's like a 2-hour issue. But I had a great usability test this morning. That was another huge highlight. And the front end's in a really good place, and the back end is in a much better place. So big highlights, even though none of those were my goals. But they made me feel happy. So yeah, it was very therapeutic to code.
Yeah.
And see things actually work. Like a pitch deck is great and it makes me feel good to like talk about my business, but like actually seeing the product work and potentially like solve my own problem is kind of cool.
And so I know we sort of talked about last week of you focusing on the pitch deck, but maybe it's okay to do it in parallel. You know what I mean? Like, especially if that's what keeps you motivated to code, and then helps you formulate or kind of narrow down your idea. Since you don't have a deadline for your pitch deck, right? And it's going to be a living document no matter what anyway. So
yeah.
So I wouldn't feel bad about not focusing on that, especially if you made good progress elsewhere.
I think I agree with you that I was saying like maybe I should just focus on the pitch deck, get money, and then do this, like focus on one thing at a time. But the mental health portion of it, of just like being able to, okay, today I'm really just feeling like hopping into code and just like seeing magic, like seeing what I call magic is just coding, what like seeing stuff like work and look pretty makes me feel really good at the end of the night, versus like a slide that I changed, a heading on in 30 minutes doesn't necessarily oftentimes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe your strategy could be something like just set small blocks of time to work on the pitch deck or something, 30-minute blocks or hour-long blocks, and then let yourself do the stuff you enjoy more.
Yeah.
So is your thought to have, I know you said in the next 2.5 months to have something out there. Would you want to have something out there before you did a pitch? Or have you thought about which one would come first?
I haven't thought about it enough yet. I don't know, because I don't know the answer. This is like money first or get app out there. I want to get the app out there and then, walk into a meeting and be like, look, this app, look at, people are using it, et cetera, et cetera. But if I spend all my time working on the app and I get to 2.5 months from now and like I just see a massive uphill battle, I think that's going to be pretty tough. I think that's going to be pretty tough to decide whether I continue on this or I go and get a job or something like that pays, or something like, no, I literally mean a job, not or something like that. Something that pays a salary. That'll put me in a net positive each month.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm like net break even right now.
That's not bad. That's not a bad place to be at all. I mean,
yeah, but it's like things like, I don't know, things are going to come up that will throw that off. Like going out for a bachelor party and then like going to a wedding and like stuff like that, that just, you know, those expenses will kick me under break even.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm 29, I'm getting older. I'd like to go on, start to, But anyways, so 2.5 months, I came to that number. I decided to do that because I talked to a couple of folks who I respect a lot. And when you talk to most people about a business, they're so kind and just want to just say, oh, like, it's so cool that you're doing that. Like, you know, like, that's so cool. Like, yeah, you'll get there and be like wanting to be really helpful. But these two folks were kind of like, yeah, but at some point, like, you got to call it, like, and their recommendation was, okay, if you're not ready to call it yet, then give yourself a date. Because if you don't give yourself a date, then you're just going to keep on this path forever, potentially. And that's not necessarily where I want to be, you know, forever. So I thought that their advice was really, really helpful. Even though it's hard to hear.
Yeah.
To be frank, I try to consider myself like a tough person or whatever, but like, even when people like, so sometimes it's tough to hear regardless.
Yeah. So if you had to go get a full-time job, would you, I assume you wouldn't scrap the idea, right? You would just have to you'd have to work on it more part-time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Do you worry about finding time? Like, is that a concern for you that if you had to do a part-time that you would find the time, or are you pretty confident you would?
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I'm doing it part-time right now. Like, my part-time gig, I'm working 25 to 30 hours, and then I'm doing the other hours on this business. So it's like, I'm basically doing it part-time, only I'm getting paid not full-time salary.
Yeah.
So I probably could do it part-time. It's not an easy, I think it's not an easy task to go and get a job.
Right.
And then to like,
I
can't walk into a new job and be like, sorry, like, if I get money for my company, like, I'm going to peace, you know, in 6 months. Like, I morally can't do that. I have to, I can't. So that's where I am mentally. But had some good highlights this past week, I would say, especially on the back half of seeing stuff work and just like trying to cut out features and get to something that just works. That's been tough though, is figuring out like I know some customer problems and I think I have some solutions for them, but those are features that take more time to build. An example is customers, when part of the application helps people estimate how much a trip is going to cost. And so one of the concerns that users have is that they're like, okay, where are these estimates coming from and how can I trust them? And one of the things that theoretically could do is just put the prices right in front of them. Like, by the way, like, here are some examples of trips in your date frame and the exact prices, like some flights, for example, or here's some hotels with images. And like, this is, you know, like, I think that would be really helpful in helping people feel more confident about the estimates we're making.
Yeah.
Instead of just seeing digits. But that's also going to take more time, and I need to be pretty vigilant about what I do.
So I think my advice on that would be take the approach of, you know, put a button, where do these numbers come from, and see how many people click on it. Well, I guess could you record that? I forget. I know you talked about that with mobile app, there being some things that you couldn't capture like you could if you were in the web.
So I have built-in buttons that have lengthy descriptions on how we make all the estimates for every estimate that's made in the app. And so, yes, someone could click on it, and in the usability test today, he did. And that was helpful. And he didn't point out anything else, but I think that that's like an intermediate solution. I think that there's a better one, but I think it'll take more time.
My thought is like to test out the demand for that kind of thing.
That's
Where you could even have that initial button, and then if somebody clicks on it, then there's a little thing that like want more information, and see how many people click on that.
Yeah, I got to do that. That's a great point. Yep.
And it could even just go to a web page or something that provides some basic information or something. But just that test, I mean, that's like the ideal way to test whether it actually makes sense. Because you may find that just that simple answer is enough for people to like get trust, to trust in the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, balancing how much I put into that description is something I've been struggling with too, is because people said that they want more confidence. And so I put in a button of like, okay, how do we estimate this? But the answer isn't necessarily like, the answer is like a 5-sentence answer. And so are people actually going to read a 5-sentence answer? Probably not. But if I boil it down to 1 sentence, like it just doesn't totally. So I like your solution of, if you want to learn more, go to this website.
Yeah.
And then track analytics there. How many people go to that? That right there is that's a 6-hour solution, which is much better than what I was imagining.
And I think you keep your 5-sentence explanation, and then people if they're not going to read it, then they don't care enough, and they're not going to click on the tell me more more button, right? So they would just click back to the main experience and do it, and then you'll know. So I would err on the side of giving them more information and letting them decide if they want to read it or not.
Awesome. Yeah.
Because to me, that's not a key thing, right? You're sort of just allaying their fears, assuming you've actually done the legwork to like have accurate estimates. You're basically just allaying their fear or concern or question, and 5 sentences might be enough to like, okay, they've thought about it. That might be all they care about.
Yeah.
Like so you can allay their concern by just showing, yes, I've thought about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing, like, how accurate do the estimates need to be? I think part of that is it's how accurate you set the expectation that they are. And I think I can set that expectation in those question mark buttons, like dig deeper.
Yeah.
One of the things that was a little disappointing that I found out was, I think we talked about this last week, was the API I was using for flight estimates, which was using 2019 data, which was great. And it was like, they did all this machine learning to be able to estimate into the future. It only has like 500 routes, which is not great. Like if you're flying from Boston to London, great, we can super accurately estimate that. But like if you're not going to one of the major routes between cities, then it won't have that super accurate machine learning. And the way I'm estimating it is right now just like, look out 6 months. What's the take all the flight prices we see. The minimum is what I consider low cost. The lower quartile or median is the medium budget, and then the luxury budget is the median cost. It's kind of I don't know if that's the right answer, but kind of, yeah.
Sorry, so that's for flight price, or that's for that you're saying?
For flight price, yeah.
Okay.
That's the one that I think is toughest to, yeah, because things do change seasonally. So it's a tough nut to crack, but I'm trying not to spend eons of time getting it perfect and spend more time allowing people to customize it and giving them context.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the right approach is there. That your approach surprised me a little bit, just because, like, I mean, to me, that sort of a flight to flight. I mean, that's not entirely true unless you're talking. Oh, if you're talking economy class, right? Like one airline's economy class is largely similar to another, unless we're talking about Spirit Airlines or something. but so, I mean, I would think if they're doing luxury, then that begs the question, like, okay, are they flying first class? Are they flying business class? Or do they want an economy seat? And so I don't know. Sometimes you just get weird things, like an airline charges a lot for a route for some reason. And I don't even know what the reasoning is. Like it's twice as much as every other airline or something, or um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the right way to do it is, but
That's that's something actually the user brought up today in the usability test was his impression of what luxury, the most expensive of the three options was. He expected that to be a business class flight.
okay.
And so I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think I'll probably benchmark it, and tell me if you agree, at like just the lowest cost business class flight and maybe add 10% onto it, something along those lines.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. That was kind of what I was thinking, is have a fudge factor a little bit
Yeah.
to account for variance. And yeah, I think it makes sense if you can, if you feel like you can trust that low end, then yeah, I probably would use that and then just add a fudge factor to it.
The that variance, I think I do, yeah. I think that's important across the board for the flights. The hotels are pretty relatively, they don't fluctuate as much as flights from what I've seen.
Okay.
And then the daily budget estimates never fluctuate. But yeah, when I was benchmarking against, like, Kayak has like awesome data that they show about, the trend of prices for flights across a year,
Mhm.
or at least 3 months, I think it is. And so I was or maybe 6 months. And so I was kind of looking at a bunch of different routes, and the variance honestly was like 10%,
Okay.
either way. So I think I can feel relatively confident in that. Maybe I just need to hit up like a data scientist or something, see what they would recommend.
Yeah. Ask it on Stack Overflow or something, maybe, or
Yeah, or
something.
I'm sure there's a Stack Exchange for data science.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone's already done this too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could just start by searching for that. If
There's one person who tried to do it, who did it and has a website, but the website doesn't work. So maybe they were thrown off by COVID prices or something, but
yeah.
yeah, I should probably reach out to some data scientists and just ask them how they'd approach it. Cool. I can do that.
But in the absence of that, I like your approach. I think go with the low end and add 10% or some kind of factor. Since you really are just doing, I mean, it's just for the budgeting part, right? Like to tell them how much they need to budget for this trip. And so I feel like even unless everything is consistently low or high, then you're probably okay. And some of the things might wash out anyway. And it is such an estimate,
Yep.
that I think you'd be okay with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I go. It's kind of like framing the accuracy of this, as long as you frame it honestly and you can educate people on how it works, then they can either decide to use our estimates or use their own.
Yeah.
And that seems to be important to folks. I know that's important because I looked at someone who's built an application similar to mine, only sketchier, and in their reviews, everyone's like, I want to be able to edit things and make. So I kind of scraped or read all those reviews and I'm implementing that advice.
That's smart. That's smart. Yeah, research.
Yeah, the other night I was just kind of going around to all my competitors, reading all their app reviews, and it's actually really, really helpful.
Have you looked on any communities? I feel like maybe we've talked about this, but like, have you gone on Reddit and looked at like budget traveler communities or something?
I'm really, really embarrassed to say I don't think so.
Okay.
I've read like blogs, like Nomadic Matt is one that he talks about budget traveling a lot. And like I've read his blogs, but I'm not in the community as much as I should be. It's a good point.
I mean, even just you could search, like you could do a smart search, right? Like look for budgeting or something in those communities. Like find one or two communities on Reddit, or core. You can search core questions too, or something, and look at budgeting and just see what people are asking and how they're answering and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I've read that as a good way to market, essentially, like look for unanswered questions on Quora
Yeah.
about your topic, and then essentially plug your solution to the problem.
Yeah, it's something I looked into for the user interview exchange. The strategy, like you kind of just need to spend a lot of time doing it. Which is, I mean, any marketing channel, you have to spend a lot of time doing it well to do it well. But I did look into that, and it does work. I mean, so yeah, that's something I need to do. I sent out that request last night for people to send budgets to me, or sorry, budgets and itineraries, which you shared yours with me from Peru, and I got like 6 or 7, maybe 6, and it was remarkably insightful. It was really, really helpful. I'm looking forward to like actually. I'll probably give it like another day and then just sitting down and really analyzing all of them. It was funny because I got yours from Machu Picchu and I got another one from a friend of mine who went to Machu Picchu and included their budget. And you guys actually had some similarities in like the way you did tabs and things like that.
Really? I feel like there wasn't a lot of budgeting in mine, and I'm trying to think of, I don't know that I really tracked that much.
You had like a trip plan. You had like a trip list too, if I remember, or maybe not a budget, but you had things broken out by like itinerary and then like packing the stuff you packed, and then it was maybe one other thing.
Yeah, and so I feel like sometimes I've done budgeting in there, but not all the time. And I looked at my India one, which is my previous big trip, and it wasn't that insightful. I feel like for whatever reason, that one wasn't as detailed as I often make them. So I decided not to send it because I didn't see a lot of added value over what I sent you for the Peru one.
I wonder, do you think that that's just because India? Yeah, why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, I think I was looking at it on my phone. Let me pull it up. Hold on. I'll put it up on my computer. It's also possible that I did it somewhere else. Like, so I don't have Excel anymore. I only use Google Sheets now. It's possible I like did it in Excel and just had a file on my computer, but I usually try to do everything in Google Sheets, I feel like. But yeah, I'm looking at it. I mean, it's definitely, there's no other tabs and it's pretty simple. So I don't know why I kept it much higher level. Yeah, I don't know. Because this one just like, yeah, depart Boston 11:30 p.m. I mean, I can show you.
I need to give you access. Oops, I disabled your chat access. Now you've got share screen access.
Yeah, so you can see it looks very simple. So yeah, I don't know why. I feel like I did have budget somewhere, but it's not in here. So,
do you speak Spanish?
No.
Okay,
because I know a little bit, but
because I tend to, like, if I'm traveling, I'll plan way more intensely if I'm going to a place where I don't speak the language.
Oh, okay.
And I wonder if maybe that had a, because
so I think for Peru, it was because I did a lot of organized trips that had very, like my trip into the Amazon had very specific dates, and then like it only left on 1 or 2 days a week. Actually, no, I think it was even less than that. And then the Inca Trail like left 2 days a week or something, and I had to like make sure I fit those two things together and figured out how to get them to work together, if that makes sense. So that was why I planned. And then the Peru Hot Bus didn't run every day. I think it ran only certain days. So like all of those things had to be coordinated. And I think I ended up having to like, I wanted to spend more time certain places, but couldn't, like ended up just not being able to. So I had to kind of shift things around. And then India, there was still some of that stuff, but it was also, there was very few organized trips or anything. So it was just a matter of like coordinating the transportation.
Sweet.
So I think that's probably why.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thanks for sending your sharing this and sending your other one.
Yeah, no problem.
So I think I've kind of talked a lot about a lot of my highs, and touched on some of my lows. And I'm feeling pretty good, coming off a good yesterday, and I liked the usability test. So and I think I talked about my goals for the next couple of weeks is for feeling really confident in a version 2 pitch deck and connecting the front end to the back end for the budgeting and trip flow in the code. And I think
You
those
thought about coming up with like milestones for yourself to get to your 2.5 month goal?
shit. Yeah, that's obviously I should have done that. Yeah. Yes. Like, yes, of course. Like
Just to make sure, because it's easy to like let things slip. And I feel like that'll just hold yourself accountable more if you have that.
Yeah. Yep.
So maybe come think about it for next week. You can go over what that is.
It's funny because I do like a lot of project management for the agency I'm working with. And like, of course, when I'm like on like a client project, I've got like all this, these timelines and like all this stuff. And like, I'm pretty strict to it. But then when it's me, I'm like, throw that stuff out the window. when it's like, why would I change my methods? Why? Yeah. So you're right.
I tend to be pretty loosey-goosey about it. I'm actually in a project management class at work. Like, so I definitely need a little bit more structure around it, I feel like.
I mean, I think everybody does. There's no one I've ever met that's just like an unbelievable project manager.
Yeah. And I'm not even suggesting for yours that it be super detailed, but just like thinking back, okay, if I want to release it on July 1st or whatever, August 1st, thinking back, okay, what are my milestones before that?
Yep.
So you have something to hit. Sort of
yeah. I need to do that. I saw I was just like watching a video of Michael Sievil he's at Y Combinator now. I think he's the CEO of, and he was like, the thing that he said, I can notice a good founder when they will come to me one week and say they're going to do something and then come back the next week and they've done it.
Yeah.
And I want to be one of those people. And so part of that is perhaps part of that is low expectation of the spice of life, but the other part of it is you're right, having this like these marching orders of where does this eventually end up. Yeah, I need to do that.
And then just discipline that we all struggle with, I think, too, to actually make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I need to be and learn, like, yeah, so some of it's discipline, a lot of it's discipline, and a lot of it's learning like to spot the things that learning to budget for unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
Like APIs not working like they say they're going to. So awesome. I'm going to add that to my number one list. Number one on my list. That stands for. Okay. We've talked a lot about me, and this has been really, really helpful. Is there anything you want to cover about the stuff you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. So my goals for last week were sending out my first email, or I guess the last 2 weeks, sending out my first email and then doing my Q1 books and filing my sales tax, which I now have to do quarterly.
Oh, really?
So I did not send the email, did not make any progress on that. Did do the books because I had to, because the taxes were due on the 20th. So the email is going to have to be a goal for this week. I don't know. I'm struggling to do it. I feel like I'm on an email list from another maker. He's an artist. I think he's based in Providence, or he's got a studio there. He does like metal sculptures, but I got his email. And I think I've been on his list for over a year, and I've just either never gotten another email or never noticed it. But, you know, because it goes to my promotions folder and I don't really look through that often. But I did find it today. And so it kind of motivated me like, okay, I need to just do this. And I was almost going to actually, like when I finished work today, draft it before this, just so I could say, at least I have it drafted and then like a first draft. So I think I just need to not pressure myself too much and just get something out there, even just if it just kind of announces, like basically my goals for it are, you know, introduce myself and introduce the business and say, you know, if you're on this list by accident because you got added and you don't want to receive these emails, please go ahead and unsubscribe. Otherwise, you know, I'll send these once a quarter roughly. Here are my upcoming markets for the next couple months. You know, keep an eye out for new products, or I may show some pictures of like new stuff I'm working on. But I haven't decided that yet. But that's essentially all I want to accomplish with it. It's just kind of like get the ball rolling. And also I've been paying for Square marketing. They billed me my first bill and I haven't used it yet. So I'm like,
That's a good like stick to kind of, yeah.
I still need to figure out if I would actually want to use Square marketing. I've thought about like switching to something else, but like I think I told you, I tried to use MailChimp and I just hated their pop-up thing. So either I just ditched doing a pop-up on the website and switch back to MailChimp or something. I don't know. I got to figure out what I want to do. But for now, I'll just use Square marketing and then eventually decide if I want to switch off of it. So that's kind of my big goal, is my first email.
Okay, can I provide a recommendation? You don't have to listen to it
Sure.
at all. If people want to unsubscribe, they'll unsubscribe. Like there's an unsubscribe button. I wouldn't necessarily call it out as if you're on here by accident. Yeah, I send out like from the user interview exchange, I send out like a ton of emails automatically. And no one has ever responded and been like, this is unhelpful. They just, and they get emails constantly. So
yeah.
Yeah.
My only thought in doing that is like, I don't explicitly ask people to opt them in when they, like there's people that shopped with me at the last craft fair that got added automatically. Like I never asked them to opt in.
I understand.
A couple of them gave me their email address because like there was a few people who ordered something at the craft fair and I said I ran out of it. So I said I'd mail it to them. So I got their email to make sure I could send them like the tracking info. And like those people all got opted in. And then actually they already got an email. I think I told you, like I had some new customers got a $5 coupon. So they already got that. And actually like more than half had opened it from the stats that I saw.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they could have unsubscribed there as well.
Yep.
So I don't like the idea of, I know, you know, the law is very careful about like people opting in. And Square seems to be just kind of weird about it. Like if people are in the Square system, that now suddenly they're on my email list, even though they didn't technically opt in. So that's my only thought about it. But I mean, maybe you're right. And I'll see if anybody complains.
It's a little looser if you like, from what at least in the United States, Canada's a little bit if you actually read like the legislation on it, which I've read like a few sentences summary of it, it's a little bit looser than like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend running around scraping emails and throwing them into it, but it's like if someone can reasonably, don't quote me on this, but it's along the lines of if someone can reasonably expect to hear from you via email, then that's okay.
Okay. What I'd like to try to figure out how to do is like when people are shopping with me in person to opt them in, like ask them after their purchase if I can opt them into my email, but I don't know how to do that at Square. So maybe I just need to figure out if there's like a setting for that.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea.
But anyway, so sending my first email is my main goal. Because I didn't do that. So the books I did, I was a little bummed. I actually took a loss last quarter of about $500. So I think I did like 3,000 in revenue or something for the quarter and lost about 500. Those are rough numbers. I forget exactly. But I mean, a lot of it was prepaying for craft fairs that I have yet to attend. That was a chunk of it. I bought a bunch of inventory of plywood, like probably more than I needed. So I have a big stockpile of it that I'll obviously kind of work my way through this summer as I do craft fairs. I feel like that was most of it. I kind of want to go back over my books. So I sort of did them like late in the evening when I finished it up. So I didn't get to like dig into it. But I've been, yeah, I really want to, so I put in $3,000 of my own money recently into the business because I had taken out I got a no interest credit card that I basically put like my laser cutter on, the 3D printer, my laptop, and a few other things. And then like the no interest ran out in March. So I like had to basically pay off the credit card so I wouldn't accrue interest.
Yep.
And so I took $3,000 of my own money and put it into the business to pay that off. And so my goal is to really pay myself back from the business this year with that, like from that money. So, so I need to just start putting profit aside or putting money aside to pay myself back for that investment. Because really I should be taking money out of the business, not putting it into the business. So
Yeah.
I've been reading this book that I've heard recommended by a lot of people called Profit First. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So essentially the overall concept of the book is, the typical business model is, sales or income minus expenses equals profit, right? So when we think about a business, we tend to just like spend as much as we feel we need, and then whatever's left over happens to be the profit.
Yeah.
In a lot of small businesses, that also is like the owners never really get paid, or they make pennies because they don't keep money. So the essential concept is like pay yourself profit first, and then pay yourself owner's equity into an account first, and then save for second, and then save for taxes third, and then whatever's left over is your operating expenses.
I see. Huh.
Sort of like the personal finance advice of like contribute to your 401k, put away 10% automatically in your savings account.
Yeah.
It's essentially applying that to business.
It's funny because I've been doing a lot of writing for wealth management websites.
Okay.
This week. And so I've been reading a lot of wealth management websites to just kind of benchmark against. And one of the quotes that's come up twice is like, it was someone talking, it was like in a bio of some financial advisor. And they used the quote like "pay yourself first" was one of their main learnings or something that they kept with them or something like that. So it's funny that you brought that up. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So he recommends like you set up 5 bank accounts essentially. You have like your income account, you have your profit account, your tax account, your owner's comp account, and then your operating expenses account, I think is the 5. So like right now I just run everything out of one checking account with my local bank. So I think I don't know if I'm going to follow it to a T. Like 5 bank accounts seems like a pain in the butt. So I might just open a savings account, or maybe 2 savings accounts for like profit and then owner's comp. And then he has like this system where you figure out the percentages you should allocate to each. So essentially the idea is like every 2 times a month, you sit down, all the money that's come into the business in that 2-week period gets divvied up to the accounts. So if your profit percent is 5, you take 5% of those income, that income, put it in profit. If 10% goes to owner's comp, you put it in that account, and then you don't touch it. You take out owner's comp, whatever you've decided is like your periodic withdrawal. So if I say I'm going to take $500 a month or something, I would do that. And then your profit, whatever's accrued in there at the end of the year, you take some percentage. He recommends 50, half of that account as like a profit. Actually, every quarter he says take half of that account and just take that as profit for yourself, and keep the other half as like a rainy day fund. So I like the concept of it. I don't think I'll follow it exactly that, but like I do like the idea of putting money into profit and then figuring out how much money I have for operating expenses.
Yeah.
I Googled because when I see something like that, it's like, okay, that sounds good. Let me hear the other side. So like, what are other people saying? Are people saying this is totally bogus or a bad idea? So I've read one thing saying like profit first is not good if you want to grow, which I can certainly see, because like that's sort of what I've been doing, even though I don't know if I would necessarily call it that, but like reinvesting in growth.
Yeah.
And I've somewhat been doing that with advertising, but like I would look at it more as like at the end of the year, I bought a planer to make to make new products, essentially was what my thought for it. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have bought that. Like I probably didn't really need it. I probably didn't need to buy the 3D printer last year when I bought it, because I really haven't done anything for the business with it. I'm kind of starting to, but like there's lots of those things that I kind of buy because like I kind of want them. So I'm kind of letting the business buy them with the idea that I might do something with them in the future. And then another thing he talks about is like that the old approach can make you sometimes want to grow or like you look at your bank balance and it's low and you have these expenses, you're like, shit, I got to make some money. So you'll go take something that's kind of out, like a bad client or a job that's kind of outside of your expertise. And so it kind of got me thinking, like, how much should I expand beyond laser cut wood art things? Like, should I be doing other kind of related things using different tools? Should I, like, I'm kind of interested in getting a CNC router, but would that kind of move me away from what I'm doing? Like, should I focus more laser and then just do as much as I can within that space of, like, you know, designing more animal things and more wall art and more trivets and, you know, all that stuff, and just stay within that narrow lane? Or should I be trying to expand? I don't know if I have the answer to that yet. The reason I expand is because, like, what I think we talked about last week of getting bored doing the same thing over and over again and wanting to explore different media. So there's part of that that I think I will explore, but I think for the most part, I'll try to keep what's working for me and not try to dilute the brand too much. And so I have to figure out that, okay, what am I going to do? Is the 3D printer going to be incorporated into the business? You know, am I going to 3D print things? Am I going to use the planer to make things,
Yeah.
etc.? So, and those could just end up being like experimental things to see how they sell, see what, if people respond to them, see if they fit in with my brand or if they need to be something else.
Yeah. So it's kind of like your, I guess it's like the cash cow is what you're doing now, and then your potential, whatever that other phrase is for the small things that are experiments, is you're kind of experimenting on the side to see if those things can accelerate.
Yeah, and like I would still probably brand them under New England Carving, like it wouldn't be a new thing, but it's somewhat just like I want to explore new things. I don't want to keep doing just simple laser cut, like the same laser cut wood stuff over and over again, I feel like.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat just wanting to explore more. And so I have to figure out to what extent that makes sense. Or do I break it out, as I think we talked about, like, do I break that out into a different brand and still under my business, but, you know, it's like a separate brand under New England, you know, separate from New England Carving. So I don't have an answer, but sort of my point with going there was I've definitely bought some things that I probably in retrospect shouldn't have bought for the business when I did. And so I think if I did something like Profit First, then I think I would be more disciplined about buying things that maybe I don't really need at the time, or figuring out to like save up for them, you know, setting some kind of guideline, like when I have X dollars in the profit account, then I can use it to invest in something. Or,
Yeah.
And then I kind of thought about, well, like, I still do want to do more advertising. I haven't cracked that nut yet, but I feel like that's going to be the best way to grow. But then there's also part of me that's like, well, maybe the better way to grow is actually trying to do wholesale, as we've talked about, in which case that doesn't cost me a lot of money, right? It doesn't cost me like what advertising could cost. It might be doing a trade show, but really it's just me knocking on doors of shops or emailing shops with my list and trying to get them to carry my product. So that's like a relatively low cost growth, I think, and probably that is what I should be doing. And then there's more posting on Instagram, more using social media is another relatively low cost, you know, money cost, right? It's still
Yeah, I was gonna say money cost, but time costs. It's easier to click some buttons and launch an ad than it is to, you know, make time during a busy work day to call around and cold call and drive to shops and things like that. I know that's really time consuming. My only thought is, if I mean, it seems like wholesale is kind of where you'll need to be eventually. And so that kind of, in my mind, that would lead me in the direction of focus on one area.
Yeah.
If you're going to go into wholesale, which is potentially where you kind of are going to end up needing to be. But then you have a 3D printer that like would be fun to use and see if there's some cool stuff you can make.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely could still do that. I think I still will, and certainly I can bring stuff to craft fairs that I never wholesale, right? Like I'm probably not going to wholesale everything I make.
Right. Yeah.
What I'll probably wholesale is the things that are most profitable or the easiest to replicate a lot, you know, large orders of. Like the bookmarks are a perfect thing for me because my profit margins are pretty good on those, and I can bust out a ton, right? Like, you know, easily cut a lot of them at a time.
And shelf space, I imagine it's an easier sell too.
Yeah. Yeah, I can stock that wood paper and it doesn't take up a lot of room.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I just need to keep evolving. But so again, going back to the profit first, that like I think I'm going to try to do it to some extent, like not follow it exactly, but try to put money aside for my profit and operating or owner's comp, just because I mainly want to pay myself back that money, and that I really want to save money, you know, in my personal life, right? Like build up a nest egg, and then I want to save in the business because I do really want to try to go full time at some point with it. And I need that runway, both within the business and within my personal finances.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of what my thought is there as well. Like I have to balance because I do need to grow. You know, I don't make anywhere near enough revenue to support myself. So I need to grow my revenue, but I also really need to grow profit as well if I'm gonna, or put aside money for that. So I have to think through all that.
What's your conversion on shops you try to sell bookmarks to those that you actually sell them?
I mean, it's 100% right now because it's only 2 stores basically. So there's one store, she approached me at a craft fair and I consigned most of my stuff, but then I wholesaled bookmarks for her. And then the only other shop I've approached is the local bookstore that I go to. And they, in Acton, the next town over, and they sell my stuff now. So I haven't approached anybody else. They were like my first test because it was like, that's my local bookshop. And so now I now have a good line sheet, I think, that I could take it, and I've had that experience of like the questions they ask, so I can put that down and do a document and send them, give them the nice line sheet and bring them 2 sample bookmarks and, let them try to order, so I just need to start bringing those to bookstores basically.
Yeah, I'd love to see you try one and I'd love to see you get to a rejection.
Yeah.
Right. If you're like, this is there was someone else I was talking to about his business, and I was like, so you've tried to sell it to 2 people and both of them bought it, and you haven't tried to sell it to anyone else. Why don't you do more of that?
Yeah.
And I understand like sales sucks, but like, and it's really time consuming, and you had relationships with those two people, but one was very local and the other one approached you. But I don't know, it seems like a good opportunity to see if that scales.
Yeah, I do need to. I mean, that needs to be high on my list, I think, of things to do. And especially, I think I talked about doing the AnyMade show, trade show locally.
Yep.
They want to see, so it's coming up in September or something. They want to see you to have some kind of wholesale experience. So I feel like if I had any dreams of doing that show this fall or even next spring, the next one, I should really try to have more wholesale accounts already under my belt before I go do that.
Yeah.
So like show more credibility there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that should probably be a focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just make it like I'll just try to do one store, approach one shop in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I did also have somebody approached me or came to a craft fair right before the pandemic, I think. And they run another shop. It's actually at the Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge. They have a gift shop there. And I think it was them that were interested in selling the bookmarks. And then they just never contacted me after that. Like they took my card. So I need to probably just go stop in there sometime if they're open again. I have to check if they're kind of open again after COVID, and see if they're interested.
Yeah, sounds like
so that could be my next one. And then there's a bookstore in Worcester that I did actually a little research. I looked on their website to see if they had a method for that. And I go in there somewhat often, so they probably be the next one I'd approach.
Cool.
But they're a used bookstore, and they don't seem to sell a lot of gift type items, so I don't know if they would be. And they actually, I think they already sell some other bookmark, so maybe they wouldn't be a great one, but it's still worth approaching. But
I love the concept of big bookmark, clashing. The bookmark industry is up in, but I want to get one of your bookmarks. I want one of your other one of your other things, but I want to save for that.
Yeah.
The very least, I want one of the bookmarks.
Cool. Yeah, come see me on. The first too.
Yep.
I have to get ready. That's my other goal, is to prep for the craft fair. To not wait till I usually wait till like the week before, and then I stress myself out trying to prep for it. So I'm
Yeah.
going to try not to do that and try to do some pre-prep. I have an Etsy order I have to do as well. And then I forget if I told you. So somebody approached me on Etsy. He messaged me from the local children's museum, the Acton Discovery Museum, and asked if I would donate something to their auction. And so I did. I donated a lion,
Cool.
a regular lion. So hopefully that'll just be some exposure, like
Yeah.
people maybe drive some traffic to my site. So yeah, I forget why I said that, but
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's
yeah.
potentially, yeah, people will take the all the people who didn't get it might look into it a little bit farther.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah, so I have a few kind of opportunities that are coming up, but wholesaling, and definitely, I think that is my growth area. And then prepping, that's where I was going with it, prepping for the craft fair. And also in May, I have 3 fairs on consecutive weekends, I think. So I'm going to be busy. And then I have a break for Memorial Day. So I think the first or second, whatever, is the open market in Boston. Then I have the Mother's Day weekend craft fair in New Hampshire, Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. And then I'm doing SOA the next weekend, I think.
Oh, yeah.
No, there's one more in there. Sorry, there's 4 on 4 consecutive weekends.
When you say weekends, are you doing Saturday and Sunday for each of those?
Only one of them is 2 days, I think. The other ones are all 1 day.
Yeah, well, that's a lot though.
Yeah. And then it will be busy as well. I think every weekend in June I have one as well.
Do you keep your line sheets with you?
I haven't been in the past, no. I should. I should just keep line sheets and some bookmarks in the car. I only have line sheets right now for the bookmarks. I don't have them for all my other products. I did sort of reprice. I know I had made that a goal a couple of weeks ago, I think, of like reviewing my pricing. I did more of that yesterday and need to adjust all my pricing. I always seem to do this where I look at my personal site or Etsy and they don't match. And I try to keep them all matching and I don't know why. So I just sometimes I think I change it in one place and forget to change it in the other. So I just need to make all those changes. And I think that's been partially what's been holding me back from wholesaling, is needing to get my pricing right. Because my fear was if I dropped my price in half for wholesale, that I was going to actually lose money on that. And so if I get my prices right, then now I know that the wholesale price would be enough.
Yeah, it puts you're in a good spot. Yeah, I mean, I would bring it just I'm thinking of that conversation a year ago where he's like, "Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to potentially wholesale your product, and if you could just whoop, here's the line sheet."
Yeah.
That.
Oh yeah, for craft fairs, I definitely should bring.
That perhaps could have converted him.
Yeah, bring line sheets.
Yeah.
So those are kind of my goals. That was a long discussion about goals.
Yeah. Can you summarize them again?
Yeah. So I had my goals were the books, and then filing the taxes. So I did do that. And my other goal was the first email, and I did not do that. So I'm going to try to do that one this week,
Cool.
or maybe this weekend. That'll be my goal.
Am I on your email list? I think I am.
I don't know if you are. I forget. Yeah. Did you do it through the pop-up thing?
I'll do it again. Either way. So sorry, I interrupted you. Your new goals were email.
Yeah. Approaching one shop about wholesaling.
Awesome.
And then prepping for the craft fair.
Yeah.
So as far as what I was actually doing instead of making progress on things, as we kind of talked about before we hit record, I was sort of just doing hobby things that are interesting to me, but that very well could turn into something for the business. And so what that was this weekend was working on, I think we talked about creative coding. So I use processing and doing visual coding stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was doing some of that this weekend and wanting to, I don't know what it's going to turn into. So I can use it for laser cutting. There are things I can design in there, and I've actually done some of my designs are based on that, algorithms that I use and create the code or create the design. Eventually I had thoughts of maybe like, I don't know, doing other, I could engrave designs in wood and stuff too, like anything I design. I've thought about doing like a separate sort of thing where I do a print on demand of like creative code driven art. So like every piece would be unique. Like I would only have one instance of everything. So I'd have the algorithm, I'd hit play, and then that would generate the art, and then that would be one of a kind. Like I wouldn't sell that design again. So just kind of played with it, and like it's fun, it's interesting to me, and it got me back into coding because I really haven't been doing a lot of it lately. And then the other thing I worked on was I started this like when I bought my 3D printer, so like probably March or April of last year. And then I feel like when COVID hit, I think I've told you this. So I was in like April and May, I was making face shields for hospitals.
Oh, I don't think I knew that, or I forgot it. Oh, that's really cool.
So like basically what happened was Prusa, the company that makes my 3D printer, they're a Czech company, but they designed these face shields that you can 3D print the visor, and then you just need the plastic shield part. And so I put out a call. I was going to try it because I was like, well, there's a PPE shortage, might as well try it. So I 3D printed the thing. And the plastic was hard to come by. Initially, they said you could do it with plastic, like 2-liter soda bottles. You could cut them and make the shield. So I put out a call on Nextdoor for soda bottles, and I ended up picking up a big bag of soda bottles from somebody, and then they didn't work, unfortunately. But then somebody else posted saying, hey, they had 2 3,000-foot long rolls of 36-inch wide clear PET plastic. They're like, we bought these. Actually, they were given to us by like my brother-in-law works in the plastics industry.
Sure.
So he gave them to us for like home renovation that we didn't end up doing. So they've just been sitting in our basement. You can have them if you want. So I got these two rolls, got them home. They actually came, delivered them for me. They live in the town next door, 2 towns over or something. I started like the stuff laser cut great, and so it fit right on the shield, and I can make shields. So I ended up the 3D print. I think each shield took like 12 hours to 3D print, so you couldn't do it super fast.
Oh wow.
So, but the makerspace I belong to is doing. They were trying to find it too. They initially started trying to do masks, and they kind of realized that wasn't going to work. So I told them I could get the plastic and started like laser cutting the plastic shields and then 3D printing. And then they kind of used their YouTube channel and social media to get a bunch of other people with 3D printers to print. And so I ended up giving them a bunch of plastic, also cutting plastic for them. And then I found there were different forums online of people doing this who needed the plastic, because that was like the hardest part to find. Like people could 3D print. I went on Amazon and bought a bunch of 3D printer filament, but they couldn't get the plastic. So I ended up sending like hundreds of the visor parts that I laser cut out to people. And then they reimbursed me for shipping and stuff. So I still have some of the plastic sitting in my house, but a lot of it went to them. And I mean, I don't even know how many shields we did, like thousands probably in total that I contributed to. So, and then I did like delivered some directly to a doctor at Emerson. She lives in Harvard, Mass. And so she was like using them around Emerson, and I got a couple of nice thank you notes from her staff who had them.
Oh, that's so cool. No, you never told me this. You definitely.
That was fun. Like, and it was a good way to keep my mind off of the stress of
that
first month in the pandemic when we were just like, nobody knew what was going on. And then, but I feel like after, like, I was sort of all full bore on that. And so kind of like I feel like by the end of that, I was like, I don't want to look at my 3D printer for a while. Like, I'm done with it. And also there were some print problems that I kept running into that I didn't troubleshoot. So the thing sat idle until I think a month or two ago. I like tried to 3D print something. Again, there were problems. And then this past weekend or last week, I guess, I figured out what the problem was and fixed it. And I was looking online and ended up doing some 3D printing of like one was a self-watering planter, so I can plant some basil and have a self-watering thing. And then I ended up finishing this project that I had started a year ago that I just never finished, which was a camera slider, which I have really no interest in a camera slider, but it was sort of like I wanted to learn the skills that it took to build it, which was to design all the pieces.
I don't know what a camera slider is. I suppose
it's literally just a rail it's a motorized slider, so you can put your camera on it and it slides over some amount of time that you can set.
Oh, okay,
So you
cool,
get
cool.
like a panning effect kind of.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
So I, like I said, had no need for a camera slider, but I wanted to build the thing. Like I wanted to learn how to build it, 3D print all the pieces. I had to buy like steel rails, bought the motors, bought the board, the printed circuit board, figured out how to attach it all, it was all based on a tutorial. I didn't
Cool.
figure it out
Yeah.
myself. And then what I always wanted to do was then build a CNC machine of some sort, potentially to bring to craft fairs, like a drawing machine or something, to show people what CNC is.
Remind me, sorry, CNC, yeah.
Computer numerical control. So the laser cutter I use is CNC.
Okay.
So you feed it the image and then it processes it into commands, that it.
Okay, that's the overarching term for those.
Yeah. So you have, lasers, you have CNC routers, so that's another way to cut precise parts. There's like even the Cricut, which is kind of like a popular desktop one, now basically uses CNC technology. Even like your home printer actually technically is a CNC thing, uses very similar technology.
Cool.
So I kind of wanted to what I want to do is like a draw. So if you look up the Axie draw, that's like the commercial one, but it's almost $400 and something. But it like basically you can feed it an image and it will draw with a pen the image on a piece of paper. So I want to build something like that to bring to craft fairs. And so that like the camera slider was like step one of learning how to kind of do that. And then I found today a tutorial of somebody who built one, and he's got like all the parts list and everything. So I think I'm going to do that as kind of a next project so that I can then bring it to craft fairs and do something with it. I don't know if it'll just be a display thing. I don't know if it'll be like, hey, I'll do an image of your name for free, on a piece of paper, just as like a cool takeaway kind of thing for kids or whatever, or what. But I think it'll be kind of a fun thing to like get people into the booth.
And I mean, playing off the same kind of giraffe theme, like that seemed to work pretty well for drawing people in. So
yeah,
doubling down on that whole, yeah, I think that it fits with your brand. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I was kind of working on stuff like that, of just like interest things that might turn into business related things. And then I think I probably will build that little machine because it'll be a cool experience. And
are you using a Raspberry Pi or is it like some even lower level than a Raspberry Pi?
Lower level, I would say. So I do use Raspberry Pi. I have one. This is a microcontroller, so it doesn't even have like a full computer on board. There's no graphical user interface or anything like a Raspberry Pi would have. It doesn't run Linux. It's just a basic microcontroller. And then you have to get a CNC shield for it. So it's just another circuit board that goes on top of it. It's Arduino is what the driver is.
Okay.
And then you get a CNC board that goes on top of that. And you use certain software that feeds they call it gerbil. I don't recall what it stands for, but it's essentially the commands of like, move a millimeter this way and then move a millimeter that way kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
So I think it's a reasonable thing for me to be able to do. And I think that might be my next project. Yeah. So
I think
that
kind
of motivated me to like just focus on fun things was I was watching a video last week of like, I feel like late last week was kind of like a down, mentally, emotionally down week. So I was kind of looking for like pick me ups, and I sometimes watch, YouTube videos as like sort of motivational ones or like whatever, so I'm watching somebody just talking about something that resonated with me is like taking time for myself more. Like, I feel like when you work full time and then run a business on top of that, it's just feels like I feel guilty if I'm not working on one or the other. And so he talked about like making weekends sacred. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to make my whole weekend sacred, but like maybe I need to make one day of my weekend sacred, or only work on fun things that could be business related, but like the things I really enjoy. Not that I don't enjoy most parts of the business, but sometimes some of it's drudgery. Like, doing my books isn't really that fun. Instagram, like I wish were more fun, but I don't have a ton of fun with it. I think if I got into a rhythm, it could be more fun, but even like, figuring out how to do the wholesaling stuff is like not always fun, right?
Yeah.
So doing the parts that, and then I would say designing stuff is fun when I'm in the right mood for it, but then a lot of times it's just long and can be drudgery. So I kind of was just doing something that's fun that could turn into something else in the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. I watch TED Talks. That's my pick me up.
Okay.
And so, sometimes I'll rewatch I'm not usually a person to rewatch videos, movies, or reread books, but there's one video that I watch every single year religiously, and sometimes multiple times a year. It's in the ESPY Awards, like probably in like the 80s. I don't know if you're familiar with the ESPYs. It's ESPN gives awards for like sports stuff.
Okay.
It's like the Grammys, but for sports. And it was the year Jimmy Valvano was a coach for the North Carolina, the not University of North NC State, and he had come down with cancer and was about to die. And he was a phenomenal coach. He was still coaching, a young guy, and he gave up. He went up there like limping, and he gave this unbelievable speech. Like literally, like he died like months later. But he talked about like three things. He's like, if you do three things every single day, you've had a good day. If you laugh, if you think, and if you cry, he's like, if you do those three things in a day, then you've had a day. And like every time I watch that video, it just brings it gets me so amped on life. And so that video, and then another one is Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
Okay.
On TED Talks, which is basically just, I don't know, you've probably seen it or understand the concept, which just reminds me to like be like, I'm not built like, this is a conversation we had last week, like when I actually take a step back and think about why I actually care about building my business, it's because like I care about the why. So that video is really helpful for me. But yeah, I do the same thing. I self-medicate with videos sometimes.
I use books and stuff too, but I feel like videos more lately, like I feel like YouTube wasn't a big thing for me until maybe the last year. I've kind of gotten more into it, but there's something about just like hearing somebody else's experience more than reading it. I feel like that kind of gives you this sense of like not being alone in your experience, whatever it is.
Yeah, that reset, kind of like what we were talking about way at the beginning of this conversation when we were talking about like conferences, using those as like a reset, or at least I do, to like think a little bit more broadly. Videos, it's kind of does the same. Talking about my business too gets me stoked. Went over to my friend's house this weekend, and I felt really bad because I kept on it, like I kept saying like, you don't have to listen to me while I talk about this. Like the more I do, like the more stoked I get. So that's also, which is why I should have gotten a co-founder a long time ago, because we could have easily played off of each other. But that was one of the biggest mistakes.
Well, so now I'm playing that role, I feel like, and that you're playing that role for me of like being able to talk about it. And
it's exactly it. Yeah. Yep. That's exactly how I feel. That's why I love that we're doing this once a week, and I get stoked. And also, yeah, you call it really helpful things. I think one of the things that I can do tonight, and we'll do tonight, is build out that timeline back from like literally, like I have this date in my mind for cutoff, but like, okay, what's it actually going to take? Like, duh, I should have done that a really long time ago. So yeah, I'm going to do that. That'll be interesting. I bet it's going to be a lot more work than I think.
Yeah, it might be. You might realize that it's more of a crunch than you're expecting.
Yeah, I think so. But we'll see. And I need to be realistic about it too, and try and notice and note when where things could go massively wrong. I'm pretty good at that in my day job, but when it comes to me, I'm like, oh, well, just code that. That'll be like a 4-hour project. It's like, no. So
yeah, it'll be I think a good exercise for you to get realistic with it.
Definitely. All right. Is it cool if I end the video?
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Yes, thank you, audience. You've been a fantastic audience. One of the best.